Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks again for being here today. Minister Dempster, thanks again for being here. Minister Haggie online and Deputy Minister of Forestry, Jamie Chippett. So first, I'll start this morning again by just sending our extreme thanks and gratitude to everyone who's involved in the emergency response throughout the province right now. Volunteers, humanitarian support organizations, our aircraft pilots, officials in the Department of Forestry, all the local fire departments who've stepped up. These are career and volunteer firefighters from communities across the province, as well as the firefighting equipment that they're using and stepping up, offering help across the province right now. It's a tremendous benefit that we have all these individuals who are willing to step up at this very difficult time and dangerous time, and it's very difficult work. So I do want to thank everybody for their continued efforts. Also, a huge thank you to New Brunswick. As I said yesterday, they provided a bird dog, and they will be sending today 3 more aircrafts to our province, and they're called Air Tractor 802s. So that will certainly help with suppression efforts across the island when they arrive. Just when we're talking about assets from across the province, so everybody, across the country, I should say, so everybody is aware, there's almost 800 fires burning across the country right now, and that's 6.8 million hectares have been burned to date. So it is a testament to how busy the season is, not only in Newfoundland and Labrador, but across the country. And of course, as I said yesterday, it is all hands on deck, and there has been a tremendous effort by government departments and our community partners. But individuals, again, I will stress across the province, have a role to play throughout the remainder of this fire season. Last night here in St. John's, our local fire department had to respond to 3 reports of bonfires last night. This is on the same day that Minister Dempster announced the provincial fire ban. So I can't stress enough how important it is for everybody to pay attention to the rules in place regarding fire bans right now. We also have looked at our legislation and our regulations regarding fines in the event that someone does violate a fire ban, and in my opinion, those fines are way too low. They can be as low as $75 for a fine. So we will be immediately looking at increasing the amounts to serious numbers in the event, serious dollar numbers in the event anyone is found to breach a fire ban during the remainder of this summer and into the future. Just other things to take note of for individuals, please make sure that in areas where these fires are, that recreational watercrafts are not in the area where water bombers are using water to fight the fires. Of course, they'll get in the way, it'll be dangerous. We need to make sure that those areas are clear so the people flying the water bombers can do their work. And again, please maintain vigilance with regards to anything you're doing near wooded areas. Just want to remind people or talk about the provincial wildfire ban because we had some questions on that yesterday. So while the minister has put the fire ban back in place province-wide, it does not mean that there were not fire bans throughout the province regionally, and particularly in the area where the Adams Cove fire happened, there was actually a fire ban in place at the time that this started. So it just goes to show really how vigilant we need to continue to be. I'll just provide an update now on the fires, the 3 fires now that we're looking at across the province. The first one in the Adams Cove area. It is now up to 1,432 hectares, so that is now doubled in size since we were here yesterday morning. But the good news is that the fire has grown inland, which is away from the communities, and we have no reports as of this morning of any further homes lost in that area. But again, please keep in mind it is very smoky, so it's going to take some time to get that confirmation. But there is potentially some lost cabins in the Broad Cove Pond area. Again, with the good news, though, the southern flank, which it will be moving towards communities in that part of the province, is in good shape, and light winds today. So there are favorable weather conditions today for continued suppression efforts on the southern flank. This also allows us to set up a base, I guess a command trailer in the Salmon Cove area. So you may have seen that Salmon Cove is on alert for potential evacuation, but we feel confident enough that we're able to send our own teams in there to set up a base close to the fire, close to the situation, a staging area which will allow for food to be delivered, for firefighters to be right there on the ground, and for helicopters to fly in and out of that area. So that will help tremendously and hopefully give some comfort to people in that area that we feel comfortable going into Salmon Cove, but still to make sure that they pay attention in case things change, that it could obviously turn into an evacuation order. There are 3 water bombers that will be fighting this fire in this part of the province today. 3 bucketed helicopters, and 20 ground crew, with 10 additional ground crew to come tomorrow. As for the Holyrood fire, there was only marginal growth last night, so it's still about 22 hectares, which it was yesterday. There was some concern last night that it was going to jump the highway, Route 60, but the team, did tremendous work and managed to hold the fire to 22 hectares, so that's good news there. Today we'll have 1 helicopter and 10 ground crew and local fire departments in that part of the province, in the Holyrood area, and again, low winds there, so those are favorable weather conditions. And the new fire to talk about, which we didn't talk about yesterday, it started at some point yesterday afternoon, I think, is just off the Bay d'Espoir highway. So it's about 2.8 kilometers from the highway and about 36 kilometers down from the Trans-Canada Highway. As the crow flies, that will be about 20 kilometers from Grand Falls, Windsor. But there are favorable winds there as well today, so the fire should be blowing away from Grand Falls, Windsor. But we do anticipate lots of smoke in that area. Of course, we've been through a fire in this area, not in the too distant past. So I know individuals on the Canaga Peninsula will be concerned, their isolation in the event that the highway has to close. And we certainly have contingency plans to deal with that in the event that it does happen. No structure loss reported in that part of the province, and we'll have 1 water bomber, 3 helicopters, and the 3 assets from New Brunswick will be going to that part of the province today. So that's an update on the fires today, this morning, I should say, because as we know, things can change. I'll ask Minister Haggie for some comments, and then Minister Dempster.
Thank you very much, Premier. I'll start as I did yesterday by saying thank you to the crews, both in the air, which we see, and on the ground, who get buried in the smoke and have a dirty job, but they did a wonderful job yesterday, particularly around Holyrood and that southern flank near Adams Cove. I think it's fair to say the province is a tinderbox at the moment. I think people really need to be extremely careful with how they behave and what they do, particularly smokers. We have had speculation, and social media is rife with it. But I would encourage people to contact the RCMP if they see anything unusual. And the example of 3 bonfires in Metro yesterday is nuts, given the circumstances, quite frankly. They can report anonymously if they would prefer, and the RCMP will take those seriously. The other comments have been around assistance from elsewhere, and the Premier's touched on some of that. I think it's useful for our residents to know that Public Safety Canada have a physical presence on our Emergency Operations Committee who has direct links to Ottawa. And similarly, we have someone from Canadian Forces who has direct links into the military system. So there is a direct line to the federal government. I spoke with the federal minister, Minister Olszewski, yesterday, and the country is in a difficult situation, as the Premier said. I don't think there's much more I can add there, except we really need to be careful individually and collectively. If you see something, report it. Thanks very much, Premier.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Dempster.
Thank you, Premier. I think I'll just start with something that I'm getting an increasing number of emails on is around the fine piece. And a couple of things I want to say on that is right now the Act allows that if somebody is confirmed to have started a fire, they can be liable for the entire cost if the courts determine. And that could be up to a multi-million-dollar fine. People are asking increasingly what we are doing as a government, and I want to say that we are continuously monitoring the situation. Right now we're doing a very deep dive into what other jurisdictions are doing, and we're keeping all options on the table because our primary concern is the safety of our people and communities. And it's been said by our Premier and Minister Haggie, and I will say it a third time, it needs to be said over and over. People do need to exercise good judgment right now when it comes to outdoor activities. I think we've spoken each time we've done a media veil around drones when they're in the sky, we can't fly. Kind of a newer recreational hobby, I guess, that's come to our attention the last few days is around the boats, and they are hindering progress of our bombers if they're in bodies of water where the bombers are scooping down. So we certainly want to remind people, if you see activity in the area, just avoid that area and do your recreational boating somewhere else. I think my final comment will be to thank both our team in forestry. There is incredible, beautiful stories that's coming out of this really challenging time. One of our guys yesterday set to go on vacation with his family. He's been carrying a heavy lift since we started. Canceled flights, canceled tickets, postponed because the commitment is here. Sat with a guy last night coming back from rotational work in Labrador, and he was landing and going straight out to do his volunteer fire work. We flew over Perry's Cove, and you could see where the fire went right to the edge and started back. And throughout the black, there was structures, houses, still perfectly intact, and that's a credit to the volunteer firefighters. So I just want to toss a big bouquet, and as the Premier started with the Avail today, we really appreciate the efforts of so many, and I think considering the challenging times that people are in, spirits were pretty high last night when we were out in Victoria moving through that area. Just a lot of people stepping up to do good work in a difficult time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Any questions?
The province of Nova Scotia has banned the use of ATVs in wooded areas and hiking. Is that something that we're going to do in this province?
So the first thing we're going to do is look at increasing the fines. You know, I'm not sure what the rationale for banning people from being in the woods totally is. We're certainly going to look at everything, as Minister Dempster said, but I think the first step right now is to look at the increase in fines.
You mentioned potential loss of cabins in Broad Cove. Are those the only structural damages that have occurred so far?
So again, I mean, if you haven't seen pictures of the smoke, it's very difficult to see communities. I think what we saw yesterday was the fire approaching or getting very near cabins in the Broad Cove Pond area. So that's why we can almost say that we're worried for structural loss there. But other than the approximately half dozen I said yesterday that we thought we had lost in that area, there's no other confirmation.
Does the latest contribution from Nova Scotia, is that the New Brunswick?
Sorry, say that again?
The latest contribution in terms of aircraft from the Maritimes, is that the sum total of what's being offered by the provinces?
So the provinces don't make, just so everybody understands. No, it's important for people to understand in the community as well, because we did get asked this over the last 2 visits to Victoria. Why can't we get more assets? So we do make the request, and there's a national body that makes that decision based on obviously fires going across the country. I mean, and it literally is across the country. Vancouver Island is burning, and the east coast of Newfoundland is burning. It couldn't get more coast to coast than that. So we made that request, fortunate enough to get that bird dog very quickly, and that decision then has been made. Again, not New Brunswick, but they'll send those 3 New Brunswick assets here today to help with the fire in the Holyrood area. No, sorry, in the central area.
Is there anything else that's been assigned from other jurisdictions, or is
That's it as of now. Yeah.
Is there a cost for those to the province, like monetary cost?
There is a cost, but it's covered off through a long-standing agreement. I don't have the actual figures in front of me, but there is a cost. And then on the other side, when we send our assets out, there's a revenue stream to the province for that.
We saw that in Conception Bay North, a lot of the fires are happening on ATV trailway systems. Why aren't we looking into banning the use of those vehicles in areas that are incredibly dry?
Yeah, again, we are looking at everything right now, all options to make sure that we do not have any increased fire, any unnecessary or human-created fire activity for the remainder of this summer and into the future. We're looking at everything.
So that is something
Yes.
you're considering?
Yes.
Banning ATVs?
We're looking at everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about how the air tractor is being used in the firefighting efforts? Do you believe it's sufficient enough given the scale of the fires?
Yep. Jamie?
Sure. So air tractors do have less capacity than the 415 water bombers that we have, but they were available through the interagency group Premier spoke to, and they will likely run out of the Gander Airport, which is fairly close to the central fire. So we're certainly happy to have those assets as a part of our suppression efforts.
In the case of the 3 bonfires in Metro, were these new $1,000 fines levied in those cases?
So there are no new fines.
Sorry.
Yep.
Were fines, I guess,
So, I mean, all I know is that what I said today is that there was reports of bonfires that the fire department had to respond to. Whether they know exactly who the individuals are, whether there'll be fines, I guess we'll figure that out in due course.
If someone wants to report a bonfire, should they call forestry or police, 911? How does that work?
It depends on where you are in the province, of course, but I would suggest you call your local fire departments.
What's your message to the people who had these bonfires? There were also 2 bonfires in the CBS held last night.
So Minister Haggie said it is nuts. The province is on fire, and we only have so many assets to go around. And to have a provincial fire ban in place, and the day the ban is in place to have bonfires here in the city, I'm so disappointed and frustrated and angry. I understand life in Newfoundland and Labrador, and part of summer life is having bonfires on the beach. And it is part of our life. It's enjoyable. It's fun. I mean, people come from all around the world to do these things here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But Minister Haggie also said the province is a tinderbox right now. The island is a tinderbox. Nobody wants to be responsible for burning down communities. So please, just think about the consequences of your actions if you're thinking about having a bonfire.
What's the current repercussion, though, for a fire right now?
I want to add to that currently in our act, for somebody who intentionally starts a fire, and that can be proven, there can be up to 2 years in prison in addition to what the RCMP, when they do their work to their findings, up to 2 years. So that's the direction we're going down. As the Premier said, we're taking this very, very serious. It's costing the people of the province through a monetary value, but it's also a very high cost. We heard last night about the fear that people are living in, the mental health impacts, so people need to take this very seriously.
But what's the current repercussions for just starting a bonfire on the beach that doesn't result in something bigger?
So right
Can't
now,
start fires on the beach.
No.
There will be consequences if the RNC or the RCMP find out that you set a bonfire in violation of a fire ban. We can provide you the regulations. You do have to work through the system a little bit because there can be different options, whether it's a ticketed or a non-ticketed offense, but the fines are too low.
What's the fine?
Minimum could be as low as $75.
What's the timeline on that increase? Is that
Right,
going to happen this afternoon?
No, we just do have to go through some bureaucratic mechanisms, but, and we do have to evaluate how high we want those fines to go by looking at other jurisdictions, but I anticipate in the coming days.
What do you make of the $25,000 fines in Nova Scotia? Is that
I mean, that's certainly comparable to what we'll be looking at. Yeah.
Perhaps the Deputy Minister might be able to best to speak to this. I know we've had, over the last couple of summers, a lot of fire activity, but I wonder if there's anything comparable in recent history where there's so many different fires in different locations that require so much coordinating. I wonder if you can think in your career or in your time with forestry, is there something that comes to mind similar to that, or is this pretty unprecedented for us here?
I mean, it depends on the season. Overall, I think we said yesterday there's 192 fires, might be 193 with Central. Last year we had a lower number, but some big fires. The average over the last 5 to 10 years is between 100 and 120 fires, somewhere in that range. So this is certainly on the historical end of things. But we had 2 really big fires last year in Labrador that overlapped. But, obviously, as we said yesterday, it is a different challenge when there's multiple communities and fires involved. But we always rely on our partners, and we certainly trust in our team to coordinate resources between all these fires.
Are we requesting any other types of aircraft from the federal government? Or?
So again, it's not a federal government, it's the agency.
Yeah,
but yes, I mean, that request will always remain in there until, if we feel necessary. I mean, Deputy Minister can certainly speak to the department, speak from the department's perspective, but yes, we will continue to make those requests.
We know a lot of people on the ground are volunteer firefighters. We've heard reports of people having to cut off the hoses and run away. These are people who are taking their time on a volunteer basis. What are we looking at in terms of resources and equipment for these departments who are fighting more fires than they ever had?
Yeah, so that's certainly, I mean, the budget for fire departments across the province, I believe, is about $1.8 million. Over the past few years, I think we've doubled that on a couple of occasions to $3.6 million. Fire trucks have gotten quite expensive over the last few years, and we do our best to make sure we provide those fire trucks and equipment throughout the province. But I think seeing what is happening, of course, seeing that the increased need for firefighting, something that we're going to look at in the future. But, you know, these fire departments, I can tell you, they fundraise, they find ways to get their own equipment. They're very proud of their fire departments. They're very proud of the work they do. They don't only respond to fires. I know I've met with departments last week when I was on the West Coast. They were responding to medical calls in their communities as well. They're responding to neighboring communities. I mean, they do tremendous work.
There was a Forest Fire Center of Excellence announced, I believe, last year. Is that operational right now? What role would that play in a situation?
It's not operational yet, so it's the Atlantic Center in Gander. So as I said yesterday, you know, we are a little bit ahead of the game. Thankfully, we did have the foresight to look at that and announce it, and now I think it's clearly it's more important than ever to make sure that that gets off the ground and becomes operational.
Premier, in less than a week, thousands of athletes are going to descend upon the Avalon. How do the Canada Games impact fire management and vice versa?
I mean, you know, thankfully the fires aren't here in St. John's where the Canada Games are taking place. You know, we certainly will continue to look at these things. Minister Hutton was with me last night in Victoria, and we talked about that on the drive out there. He's certainly monitoring the situation, make sure that the athletes can be safe. Air quality is certainly potentially going to be an issue. I know that some soccer games already, Challenge Cup soccer games tonight, were moved into St. John's. I think they were maybe in CBS, and they're moved into St. John's because of air quality risks. So it's certainly something we're going to keep our eye on. Obviously, health and safety of the athletes is a priority.
And again, I guess just your message to people who are concerned about their homes, their cabins.
Yeah, same message. I mean, we did certainly take the time to meet with people in Victoria last night. You know, it is a range of emotions, and everybody is feeling different. There's various sense of anxiety and frustration and fear, as you can imagine, and at the same time, there's a sense of calmness and relief because everybody is safe, which everybody does recognize is the most important thing. You know, some people's priorities was getting their cats and dogs out of their homes, and they have a smile on their face because they're there at the facility with their pets. I talked to a woman last night she said her son lost his house, but he was safe in St. John's, and that was her main concern. So there's going to continue to be a range of emotions as we go through these disasters over the next number of days and potentially weeks. But again, we understand the fear, the frustration, the sadness that people are going to feel, especially when they do return to their communities, whether it's their structures or not that are lost. They will know friends and neighbors that lives have been turned upside down. And I can guarantee Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and the government will be there for each other. I mean, that's certainly a message that we had last night. I was asking individuals who were there helping, you know, were they with the Red Cross, who are doing great work? Were they with the Salvation Army, who are really leading the charge as well? And no, they were just people from the community of Victoria who just wanted to come by and help and see what people needed, whether it was a bed or whether it was food or whether it was a shoulder to cry on. The volunteerism in this province is amazing.
Weather looks pretty dry for the next few days.
It does.
What should people expect in terms of where we're headed, you know?
Well, you know, this will continue to provide these updates. As we said this morning, the winds are extremely low. So suppression efforts certainly in the Adams Cove area look favorable. It's not all about dryness and rain, it is about winds as well. So, you know, hopefully we'll have some good news throughout the day as we have all those assets attacking these three fires.
And when will you say you're looking at, you know, these different measures that are possible, when should we expect a decision to be made on that?
I anticipate we'll have something for you this week.
I have a question for Minister Haggie, a policing question.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with the RNCA, and they're concerned that the number of police is lower than the national average per 100,000, and they're calling on the province to help them increase the number of police officers in the RNC. Can you react to that concern?
Yes, certainly. I met with the chief constable a little while ago, but I also met with the RNCA. I do believe it was yesterday morning. We had a discussion. They, in actual fact, were pleased with our announcement about the new seats with the Atlantic Police Academy and the increased number of recruits that will be joining the RNC this September. I believe the number is 19, and then there's another 20 scheduled for next year. We were also talking about the possibility of looking toward training in the province rather than having to send people out. So there were a variety of things discussed. It was a very cordial discussion. And I think one of the other pieces would be around retention of middle career officers who, for one reason or another, leave the RNC for other pastures. And they're going to do some work with their membership to try and identify if there's a single particular driver to do that, so we can perhaps address it in the future.
Premier, I have one more question as well. Just got a text from a reporter in Grand Falls who says they're hearing that it started, the fire there started with tree planting. Was there a ban on woods operations in Central?
I don't know, we can check on that, and we can get you a map of everything that was, bans that were in place. Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody.